Do you guys know about our Snapchat filter? No? Well, check it out on Snapchat. It's live now. We have 2 different filters, one for today and one for tomorrow. It's live here, so if you want to take any cool pictures, be sure to use that filter. Additionally, we also have a hashtag for Twitter, for Facebook, so make sure you post all of your pictures and all of your gems so we can share those, inshallah, throughout the day on these screens. The hashtag is TDC2016. So I look forward to seeing all you guys' gems, inshallah. And I'm so excited to introduce our next speaker. He's one of Al-Maghrib's newest instructors. He's known for his unique teaching style, his dedication to the youth, and of course, his poetry. Of course, I'm talking about Ustad Ammar Alshukry, aka Hot Fire, previously known as the Ghost of New York. He's a friend of the old and young, and his topic is one that crosses all generations. He'll talk about how to jumpstart our spiritual life and to attain the connection with Allah and the inner peace promised to those who remember him. Please give a warm welcome to Ustad Alshukry.
1 2 1 2. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلاة ربي وسلامه عليه أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Sister Basant did her research. She was pulling up aliases that I haven't used in like 5 years or 10 years actually. She's got some friends in high places apparently. So I'm gonna have to quiz her about that after. But my topic today, inshallah, is called Spiritually Stuck. So I wanna paint for you a picture. I wanna tell you a story about a fictional character that you all know. Let's say his name is Ahmed. And Ahmed is a young man who's very active in his community. He is 19, maybe 20. As a teenager, he was very involved in the masjid. He grew up in the youth groups, youth halaqat, would go camping, wrestle in the masjid, all of that great stuff. When he got to college, he got involved in the MSA and he was very interested in learning. He would go attend classes and conferences just like this. He was involved in the masjid, go home, pray Isha in the masjid, most nights pray Fajr in the masjid, most mornings. Was involved in charitable organizations, maybe did a little bit of campus activism. He was all over the place, and everybody knew him. And everybody appreciated the energy that he brought, the talents that he had. And then he graduated. And when he graduated, he had to get a job. And when he did that, he had to lighten his load a little bit. He couldn't be involved in all of the activities that he did, and maybe his job required him to travel a little bit. So he had to cut down on the organizations that he participated. He had to pick and choose, and he wasn't able to take on positions of leadership like he did before. Maybe he could volunteer, or maybe he could consult, some of his younger brothers and sisters in the organizations who had taken over the organizations that he used to be involved in. And then Ahmed did what people do when they have good jobs. He got married. And then his nights were no longer as available. He wouldn't pray Isha in the masjid all the time anymore. He got sucked into a whirlwind of social activities and visiting the in-laws and this and that. And then he had a kid. And now his mornings and his nights and his weekends have consumed him. And he's 26 going on 36. And the next day when he turns 36, he looks back at that past decade and he's wondering, well, where did it go? And he sees in the mirror someone who is different. All of his activism is no longer there. He goes to the masjid sparingly, maybe once a week for Jum'ah only. The Quran that he memorized during those years is a struggle to upkeep. And he finds that his spirituality is no longer there. He's spiritually stuck. When he gathers with his friends, they no longer talk about da'wah and talk about the community and moving the community forward. They talk about work struggles. They talk about hope for promotions. They talk about retirement. And so I wanted to create a presentation that revolves around a person who finds themselves in that scenario, which is all too common. And I wanted to focus on two aspects. Number one, if a person finds themselves not connecting with Ahmed because they're still where young Ahmed is, still involved, still active, still looking forward at their future and seeing the world in their pocket, then that's a great place to be, but you have to make sure that you're able to prevent spiritual fatigue or spiritual stagnation from setting in the future. But if a person already feels that they are where Ahmed is, then there are cures. And I want to discuss that in the second part. As for some of the symptoms, or some of the ways that a person can prevent spiritual stagnation, rather, there are a lot when you look in the books of the scholars, but I wanted to focus on just three. The first being balance. The first being balance. Many times when we go into the religion and we start to interact with it at a deeper level for the first time, we become so impassioned that we want to learn everything right away. And we want to memorize everything right away. And we want to do everything right away. But as one of my teachers used to tell me when he was my Arabic teacher, and I would sit with him and he would tell me just a few grammatical points here, and then he'd spend the rest of the evening in conversation, and I'd tell him, give me more, give me more. And he would always say, إِنَّ الْمُنْبَتَّ لَا أَرْضًا قَطَعَ وَلَا ظَهْرًا أَبْقَى. He would say, the one who's hasty, they neither get to their journey, they don't get to their destination, لَا أَرْضًا قَطَعَ وَلَا ظَهْرًا أَبْقَى, and their ride doesn't even survive. It paints you the image of a person who's doing 120 on the highway to get somewhere where they're going very fast, and they crash on the way. They destroy their vehicle, and they don't get to where they were going. The Prophet ﷺ, when he met Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, who was a companion of the Prophet ﷺ, and he was a young man, the Prophet ﷺ said, I heard that you pray the entire night, and that you fast during the day. And he said, yes, I do that. I fast every day, and I pray all night, every night. The Prophet ﷺ told him, don't do that. Pray and sleep. Fast and break your fast. And know that your body has a right over you. Your eye has a right over you. And your wife has a right over you. So give every one of them their right. The Prophet ﷺ is calling him to balance. Abu Darda was a companion who was commissioned to be the brother of Salman al-Farisi. And so they were brothers. And when Salman came to visit the house of Abu Darda's wife said to him, your friend has no desire for the dunya. He's not involved in the dunya at all. He's just completely a person focused on the hereafter. He fasts every day. And so when Abu Darda is offering Salman food, he says to him, here, eat, I'm fasting though. Salman says to him, no, I'm not going to eat until you eat. And so Abu Darda breaks his fast to honor his guest. And then as Salman lays down to sleep, his host Abu Darda gets up to pray. And Salman says to him, no, you too, go down to sleep. And so Abu Darda sleeps, and sleeps, and sleeps, until finally Salman wakes him up a little bit before dawn, and he says to him, now get up and pray. And then he says to him the very famous statement, إِنَّ لِبَدَنِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا إِنَّ لِرَبِّكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا. He says, your Lord has a right over you. And your badan, your body, has a right over you. وَإِنَّ لِأَهْلِكَ عَلَيْكَ حَقًّا. And your family has a right over you. So give every possessor of right their right. When Abu Darda went to Rasulullah ﷺ to tell him later what Salman had said, the Prophet ﷺ affirmed the truth of that statement by saying, Sadaqa Salman, Salman has spoken the truth. And so recognizing the importance of balance, this life that we live is not a sprint anywhere. It is always a marathon. وَاعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيكَ الْيَقِينَ. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, worship Allah until death comes to you. The objective is not to worship Allah really, really hard during your college years or during your 30s or during your 40s and running out of gas before you die. In the khutbah that you hear or the introduction to every khutbah that you hear, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ حَقَّ تُقَاتِهِ وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ Muslimun. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, oh, you who believe, fear Allah as He deserves to be feared and do not die, except that you're in a state of submission. On that day where you die, you hope that that is a day where you are not spiritually stuck. It is a day where you are continuously to worship Allah Azza wa Jalla. So pacing yourself is very important. That's number one. Number two, is avoiding sins. And sins have an incredible effect on our spirituality and our heart's journey to Allah Azza wa Jal. And I want to read for you a passage that Ibn al-Qayyim wrote. And Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, he wrote an entire treatise called The Illness and the Cure. And he devoted a large section of this treatise to the effect of sin. And he talks a lot about it. But I want to read to you what he says. He says, sins stand as obstacles in the way of one's heart in obeying the Lord. They prevent one from stepping forward towards one's Lord in a state of purity. The heart normally moves towards Allah with strength. But when it's overpowered by sin, its power is weakened. And if its power is removed, the heart breaks its connection with Allah. So then it becomes harder to bring it back. A sin could either kill the heart or inflict it with a serious ailment, weakening its power until its weakness ends in one of the 8 ailments. Until its weakness ends in one of the 8 ailments from which the Prophet ﷺ sought refuge in Allah, which are worry, grief, inability, laziness, cowardice, miserliness, the heavy burden of debts, and the overpowering of men. And so as our hearts all journey to Allah Azza wa Jal, Ibn al-Qayyim is saying that when we sin and we're not paying attention to it because we feel like we're still very, very spiritually powered, we feel very strong, we're involved, we're active, and we're not paying attention to the fact that these small sins, and many of our sins come through the gaze and what we say and what we hear, that they are affecting us and they are weakening us as a year goes by or 2 years go by, and we're not noticing that we're actually becoming weaker until we enter into this state of spiritual stagnation or being spiritually stuck. The third measure that prevents from this stagnation is good companionship. And whoever looks at Islam will find that Islam is a very social religion. We're not intended to journey by ourselves. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, Ya ayyuhalladhina, He says, وَتَعَاوُنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوُنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. Allah says, help one another in goodness. And don't help one another with regards to sin and evil. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says that your sawm, your fast, is the day where you all fast. And your fitr is the day that you all break your fast. And your adha, the day of adha, is the day to tudahun. It is the day that you all offer your sacrifices. Meaning you all do it as a collective body. And you find that the salah that we do it collectively. The fast that we do it collectively. The zakat that we do, it's collectively. The hajj that we do, it's all collective. We are supposed to journey toward Allah Azza wa Jal together. And Allah Azza wa Jal commands us, He says, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا. Allah says, and hold on fast, tightly to the rope of Allah Azza wa Jal together, and do not separate from each other. Don't separate from each other. And so the person who makes sure that they have good companionship, now, that person is a person that in their moments of weakness, their friends are supposed to look out for them. They're supposed to grab onto them. They're supposed to hold on to them. They're supposed to strengthen them. They're supposed to lift them back up. They're supposed to miss them. I had a friend of mine who when I would call him or when he would call me, he would ask me a very peculiar question. It was actually weird because I wasn't used to receiving questions like that. He would say, how's your heart? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's not asking about the physical health of my heart. He's asking about my heart. And so that would make me think, well, how is my heart? Right? But having people who think like that and talk like that is incredibly important because it makes us be introspective. We always have to gauge our Eman. And we have to ask ourselves, am I better today as far as my Eman goes than I was last week? Am I better now than I was a year ago or 5 years ago? And if I'm not better now than 5 years ago, then what do I need to do to get back on this track? And that brings me to the second part, which is, what are the cures? And again, there are many cures, but I wanted to focus on 3. And they all revolved around a single hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And I want you to remember this. I want you to memorize it. If you can't memorize it, I want you to write it down. And even though I really can't see who's doing what right now, write it down. The Prophet ﷺ, he said to Mu'adh ibn Jabal, he said, Ya Mu'adh, inni uhibbuk. He said, oh Mu'adh, I love you. Now when you love someone, and you're about to present them with something, you're about to give them a gift, the value of that gift is appropriate to the love that you have for that person. You don't give, your coworker the gift that you give to your mom. It has to be appropriate. The Prophet ﷺ, who's the most generous, and he is the most loving, he's about to present this man that he's declared his love for, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, with a gift. He says, Mu'adh inni uhibbuk. Oh Mu'adh, I love you. So don't forget to say after every salah, Allahumma a'inni ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. Oh Mu'adh, remember to say after every prayer, oh Allah, assist me to remember you and to thank you and to worship you properly. These three things are the cure for spiritual stagnation. Well, what do I mean by that? Number one is the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal. And I know some people automatically are now disqualifying this because it can't be that easy and it can't be that basic. It's like when a person who is a nutrition expert or a fitness expert, they tell you that the healthiest thing, the healthiest exercise that you can do for your body every single day is to walk. And you're like, walk? No, I need to do CrossFit. I need to do some Navy SEAL training from a documentary that I saw on Netflix. That's what I need to do. And they're telling you, no, you just need to walk. That's all you need to do. And you're like, that's so basic though. That's too basic. That's too easy. Dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal. But that was the prophetic prescription that the Prophet ﷺ used to give to people who would tell them that they're overwhelmed. A man comes to Rasulullah ﷺ and he says, Ya Rasulullah, inna shara'i al-Islam, the legislations of Islam are too much for me. Tell me something that I can hold on to. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, let your tongue be moist with the remembrance of Allah. I get it that you're busy. I get it that you might be older. I get it that you don't have the time. I get it that you're involved with too many things. So what's one thing that you can hold on to? Even now, even as you listen to lecture after lecture after lecture, as you sit in that seat, what is something that you can hold on to? That you can always do? You keep your tongue moist with the remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jal. The Prophet ﷺ was approached by another man and he said to him, I can't memorize the Quran, Ya Rasulullah. Tell me something that I can do that will be enough for me. The Prophet ﷺ said to him, say, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You can't memorize Quran? Okay, the Prophet ﷺ has a solution for you. Say these 5 things. The man then, he grabbed them as if he's grabbing them from the air. And then he says, Ya Rasulullah, that's for my Lord though. That's all praise for my Lord. What's in it for me? The Prophet ﷺ said to him, say, Oh Allah, guide me, ahdini, wa'afini, and preserve me, waghfir li, and forgive me, warzuqni, and provide for me, wahdini, and guide me. And then the man grabbed those in the air. And then he walked away with his hands full. And the Prophet ﷺ says, Hada, as for this person, فَقَدْ مَلَأَ يَدَيْهِ مِنَ الْخَيْرِ. This person has filled his hands with goodness. O kama qala sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet ﷺ is prescribing dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jal to the person who feels like they don't have the ability to do a lot. And the importance of dhikr. By the way, I don't want you to think that dhikr is something that is only for the people who can't do more. Dhikr is more. Not only is dhikr more, dhikr is the greatest. The Prophet ﷺ says, whoever says, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Or rather, the Prophet ﷺ says, whoever says, La ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulk wa lahul hamd, wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. If they say 100 times, then they will receive the reward of someone who has freed 10 slaves. And will have 100 rewards written for them. And have 100 sins forgiven for them. And no one will have done more than them in that day, except for someone who has said what they have said and increased it. And the Prophet ﷺ also says that it will be a protection from shaitan for them for the entire day that they say it. Dhikr of Allah, wa dhikr Allahi akbar. Allah Azza wa Jalla says the dhikr of Allah is greater. And whatever Allah says is great, is great. Dhikr of Allah leads to gratitude. A'inni ala dhikrika wa shukrik. The remembrance of Allah Azza wa Jalla leads you to the thankfulness to Allah Azza wa Jalla that you feel. Because a person who feels like they're overwhelmed, I'm overwhelmed by my spouse, I'm overwhelmed by my kids, I'm overwhelmed by my job. If they were to just look at it from a different angle, I have a job, I have a spouse, I have kids, then those sources of stress will be a source of gratitude. And they will be thankful to Allah Azza wa Jalla. And they will recognize that everything that they do and everything that they've accomplished, when they direct it towards Allah Azza wa Jalla, it will only increase them in their servitude to Allah and their desire to worship Allah Azza wa Jalla, because they will recognize that they are in need of their Lord. And they are at their richest when they are with their Lord. The Prophet ﷺ would worship Allah Azza wa Jalla until his feet would be swollen. And Aisha would ask him about that and he will say, أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. Should I not be a grateful slave? And Allah Azza wa Jalla, He promises and He says, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ, if you are thankful, I will increase you. And so many people, when they go through a spiritual decline, they are going through a spiritual decline because when they had that spirituality and when they were doing all of those things, they were not showing gratitude for it. Who here knows Surah Al-Fatiha? Raise your hand. I don't have all day, so just raise your hand quickly. That's a lot of people. So they're everybody in the room, basically. When was the last time you felt grateful for Surah Al-Fatiha? The Prophet ﷺ says about Surah Al-Fatiha that nothing has been revealed like it in a Zabur, or the Torah, or the Gospels, or the Quran. Nothing like a Sab'a al-Mathani. What does that mean? That means Musa alayhi salam with all of his greatness, and Ibrahim alayhi salam with all of his greatness, and Isa alayhi salam with all of their greatness. Much better than any of us could ever hope to be. The prophets of Allah Azza wa Jal, none of them had. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyaka na'budu, Iyaka nasta'in. These 7 verses that are oft repeated, and Allah Azza wa Jal made them the best revelation, the best chapter of the best revelation. Allah Azza wa Jal designed it in such a way where it flows off of your tongue, and no matter how many times you recite it every single day of your life, you never get bored of Surah Al-Fatiha. Did you ever ask yourself why? What is it that Allah Azza wa Jal placed in this surah and designed in your heart that you can recite this passage again and again and again, and if anybody else recited anything else, eventually people would be bothered. What about for all of the other surahs that Allah Azza wa Jal has given me? What about every other success that Allah Azza wa Jal has given me? And so when you are grateful to Allah Azza wa Jal, when you are grateful to Allah Azza wa Jal, you count your blessings. That will inspire you to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, أَعِنِّي عَلَى ذِكْرِكَ وَشُكْرِكَ وَحُسْنِ عِبَادَتِكَ. Now when you get to the level, which is the last one, where you are worshiping Allah Azza wa Jal, you come back to that stage, then you need to preserve it with dhikr of Allah and with gratitude. And by doing so, you will then create for yourself a self-propelling cycle that inshallah ta'ala will carry you through for the rest of your life. I ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make us of al-dhakirin. I ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make us of al-shakirin. And I ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make us of al-abidin. Jazakumullahu khairan wa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam Muhammad wa alayhi wa sahbihi wa sallam kathira. You didn't think I would finish on time, huh?
No, I thought you'd finish on time.
Alhamdulillah.
Hold up, brother Ammar, I got some bars for you. You think you can bust a rhyme? Well, I can bust a few. I wrote a few lines just a minute ago, feeling inspired by your talk, so here it goes. You talked today about spirituality, feeling stuck in one place where we shouldn't be. If you're not on the rise, then you're at a low. The path to Allah is our ultimate goal. Being free from this life and all that is in it. And Jannah, inshallah, we're gonna win it. So thanks for the talk. We all learned a lot. If you got more to say, now is your shot. Freestyle.
Really? You guys are gonna clap for that? You know, it's funny. She was telling me, she was like, I have a surprise for you. I have a surprise. And then I was like, well, what is it? She's like, I can't tell you. So I'm not a freestyler. But after hearing that, I think I'll give it a shot. I don't think I can lose. Let me see here. Okay, Sister Basant, you're gonna come at me. Be careful what you ask for. You might get what you want, especially when you come at me with rhymes that are softer than croissants. Croissants with butter. I flow, I don't stutter. When it comes to rhyming, I'm a bad brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Takbir. What do you guys think? I got bars, right? Yeah. Anyone, any rappers in here? Any creatives in the house? Got a special session for you guys later on, tomorrow inshallah, for all the creative people in the house. So all the writers,